Somewhere between the known world and the edge of memory, there is a place that time forgot to release. A landmass 3 times the size of France, home to just 50,000 souls. A kingdom with no roads between its towns, where dog sleds and helicopters are the only legs that carry you forward. This is Greenland, not a country, not a destination, a threshold. Here, the ice remembers what humanity has forgotten. Atmospheres trapped in bubbles, dust from ancient volcanoes, the chemical signature of storms that raged before the first human walked upright. Press your hand against this frozen surface and the cold strikes back, sharp, almost corrective, a reminder of how briefly you belong. Greenland doesn't welcome you, it witnesses you. And in that witnessing, something shifts. You begin to understand. This is not scenery. This is a living archive, a memory palace built by geology and time, holding secrets the planet itself may need us to remember. They call it Sila. To the Inuit, it is more than weather, more than wind or cold. Sila is the breath of the world, the spirit of the outdoors, the intelligence woven into sky and ice and silence. And here, on the frozen heart of the northern hemisphere, Sila speaks in a language older than words. The Greenland ice sheet spreads across nearly 1.7 million square kilometers. From above, it resembles an endless white desert. But look closer, and the surface tells a different story. Deep turquoise crevasses slice through ancient ice like jagged veins. Each crack exposes hidden depths, layers compressed over hundreds of thousands of years. Blues so intense they seem to glow from within. This ice is not dead weight, it is a living force. Scientists drill cores deep into its body, pulling frozen cylinders that read like chapters stacked patiently through time. Trapped air bubbles preserve the breath of ancient atmospheres. Volcanic ash marks eruptions no human witnessed. Each layer, a year. Each meter, centuries. The ice sheet doesn't just store history, it regulates the planet's rhythm. As temperatures rise, the rhythm falters. Meltwater now pours through cracks and shafts, accelerating from within what warmth attacks from above. The ice sheet loses mass equivalent to billions of tons each year, water that flows to the sea, raising coastlines half a world away. This is where carving begins. Ice breaks away with a thunder-like roar, becoming giant icebergs that drift into Disco Bay and beyond. These frozen giants aren't destruction, they're transformation. As they melt, they release mineral-rich nutrients into the sea, feeding microscopic plankton, which feed fish, which feed seals, which feed the great whales that breach between the bergs. Death becomes life, collapse becomes nourishment. But the balance is shifting. What once took millennia now accelerates in decades. The frozen heart beats with growing fragility, majestic and vulnerable in the same breath. To witness the Greenland ice sheet is to stand at the intersection of permanence and impermanence. A towering fortress that has endured ice ages, now answering to forces it cannot negotiate with. And in that silence, Sila speaks, not in words, in weight, in cold, in the slow, patient language of deep time. Listen carefully. The ice is telling us something. After the silence of the ice sheet, Nuuk arrives like a quiet exhale. No highways funnel traffic into this capital. No skyline reaches for the clouds. What strikes you first is how small it feels. Not diminished, but deliberate. Humble against the scale of what surrounds it. Mountains stand behind. The sea presses in from almost every direction. And between rock and water, a city breathes. This is where Greenland is governed. Yet nature never steps aside. Modern concrete buildings sit beside wooden houses painted in red, blue, yellow, green. Colors so vivid they seem almost defiant against the monochrome landscape. But these colors weren't chosen for beauty, they were chosen for survival. In winter, when snow erases edges and distances blur to white, color tells you where you are. Which building is the hospital? Which door leads home? Which path means safety? The paint isn't decoration, it's navigation. A language written on walls for anyone caught in a storm. Nuuk holds contradictions without tension. You might pass a parliament building in one moment, then see fishermen hauling nets in the next. Snowmobiles and cars share the same narrow streets. Children walk to school past equipment that could cross glaciers. Step inside any supermarket in Nuuk and time collapses into a single frame. Espresso machines gleam beside vacuum-sealed seal meat. Danish pastries share shelf space with dried Arctic char. A young mother pushes a cart past aisles of imported wine, her child wearing a hand-stitched anorak passed down through 3 generations. No one blinks at these collisions. No one finds them strange. Because modernity here doesn't replace tradition, it layers upon it. The hunter who checks his smartphone for weather updates will still read the clouds with his grandfather's eyes. The teenager streaming music from Copenhagen will still know how to butcher a seal before nightfall. 2 worlds, 1 rhythm, neither apologizing for the other. Nearly a third of Greenland's entire population lives here, around 17,000 people. yet it never feels crowded. Space remains. Silence remains. On clear days, humpback whales surface just beyond the harbour. Tails rise, then sink. Spray catches light, and residents barely glance up, not from indifference, but from familiarity. The extraordinary here is ordinary. Life in Nuuk follows rhythms no clock can dictate. People sense weather before checking forecasts. Plans bend around wind, ice, and light. In winter, polar darkness stretches long, 18 hours, sometimes more. The city glows under lamps, and life moves indoors. Conversations deepen, meals lengthen. Then summer arrives. The sun refuses to set. Time stretches. Boundaries blur. Children play outside at hours that would be bedtime elsewhere. The concept of night becomes theoretical, a memory, not a reality. And still, work continues. Boats leave the harbour. Fish are caught, cleaned, sold. The rhythm doesn't stop. It simply shifts key. The National Museum of Greenland doesn't impress with size or spectacle. Its power is quieter, older, the kind that asks you to slow down, to look not just with your eyes, but with something deeper. Here lie the Ilulissat mummies, 3 women, 1 child, laid side by side 5 centuries ago in a shallow rock grave on a remote cliff, sealed not by ritual, but by cold. Their faces aren't frozen in drama. There is no fear, no pain, only stillness. Fur clothing still holds its shape after half a millennium. Seams remain tight, patterns visible. Every stitch speaks of preparation, not for rescue, not for recognition, for the cold, the darkness, and whatever came next. The Arctic kept its promise. Skin, hair, tools, even expressions remained. A silent record of life in an early Inuit world. Time stopped not through magic, but through temperature, through patience, through the mercy of a land that preserves what it takes. Outside, Nuuk keeps moving. Phones ring, deliveries arrive, schedules fill, but inside these walls, a different rhythm holds. One measured not in minutes, but in generations, not in progress, but in persistence. The Ilulissat mummies don't speak. They don't need to. Their presence says enough. We were here. We survived. We prepared our dead with care, even when survival demanded everything. That preparation, the stitching, the layering, the positioning, reveals something words often miss. These were people who understood impermanence, who faced the cold not with denial, but with dignity. Tradition, survival, identity, preserved in stillness. Nuuk carries both realities at once, the ancient and the immediate. The mummies remind us that continuity isn't accidental, it's chosen. maintained through attention, through respect for what came before. And as the city moves forward, building, adapting, governing, it never forgets the cliff graves, the careful stitches, the calm faces waiting in the cold. Memory here isn't archived, it's inhabited. Kangerlussuaq feels like a place made for passing through, a threshold, a breath between worlds. It serves as Greenland's main gateway, home to the region's largest international airport, built not for tourism but for strategy. During the Cold War, American forces constructed this base to watch the Arctic. Runways were laid for bombers. Radar stations rose on ridgelines. That legacy still shows. Utilitarian buildings, wide, empty roads leading nowhere visitors need to go. Before it had a Greenlandic name, this place answered to a code, Bluey West 8. In 1941, American military planners identified this remote fjord as the perfect waypoint, a refueling station for aircraft crossing the Atlantic, far from enemy eyes. What began as a wartime necessity became a Cold War fortress. By the 1950s, Sondrestrom Air Base hummed with tension and purpose. Fighter jets sat fueled on the tarmac, pilots on rotation, ready to scramble towards Soviet airspace at a moment's signal. Radar operators stared at screens, watching for threats that might emerge from the polar void. For decades, this silent valley held one of the world's most strategic listening posts. The irony hangs heavy now. Where engines once screamed with nuclear age anxiety, only wind speaks. Where thousands of soldiers waited for a war that never came, musk oxen graze without concern. The hangars stand empty, the control towers are hollow, and the land has quietly reclaimed what urgency once seized.
Kangerlussuaq remembers what most visitors never learn, that even the coldest places on Earth were not cold enough to escape the fever of human conflict. Most travelers move through quickly, eyes on connecting flights, but Kangerlussuaq holds a secret few realize. This is one of the only places on Earth where you can reach the Greenland ice sheet by road. Set deep inland, at the end of a 170-kilometer fjord, Kangerlussuaq has a continental climate unlike the coast. Skies stay clear more often here, temperatures swing wider, and when darkness returns in winter, the northern lights find fewer clouds to hide behind. The surrounding tundra is also muskox territory. These ancient creatures, survivors of the Ice Age, roam in small herds, indifferent to the plains overhead. Their presence reminds you that Kangerlussuaq wasn't built on empty land. It was built on borrowed ground.
Kangerlussuaq doesn't invite exploration with charm. It makes exploration possible, then steps aside. A final checkpoint before the interior swallows you whole. A reminder that Greenland's heart isn't scenery. It's a presence, silent, patient, completely uninterested in being conquered. South of the Nuswak Peninsula, the ocean becomes a graveyard, not of death, but of transformation. Disco Bay stretches wide and deceptively calm, collecting the frozen giants born from Semek Kujalek. Here, where the seafloor rises shallow, icebergs run aground. They stop, they wait, they slowly surrender to time. The shapes defy imagination, fortress-like blocks, jagged spires reaching toward clouds, strange domes carved by wind and current into forms no sculptor would dare attempt. In direct sunlight, the ice blazes white, almost painful to witness. But where compression has squeezed out air over millennia, the blue emerges, deep, ancient, glowing from within like frozen memory. That blue is not painted, it is earned. When snow falls on a glacier, it carries air, tiny pockets trapped between flakes. Over decades, the weight of more snow compresses the layers beneath. Over centuries, that pressure squeezes tighter. Over millennia, the ice becomes so dense that almost no air remains. And here is where physics becomes poetry. White ice scatters all wavelengths of light equally. But this ancient blue ice, compressed beyond anything we can replicate, absorbs the reds and yellows of the spectrum, allowing only blue to escape. The deeper the compression, the deeper the blue. What you see when you look at that color is not merely ice. You are looking at time made visible. Each shade of blue represents thousands of years of accumulation, thousands of winters, thousands of snowfalls that fell before Rome was founded, before the pyramids rose, before humans learned to write. The air bubbles, still trapped inside, hold atmosphere from ages we cannot imagine. Scientists have extracted these bubbles and measured their contents: carbon dioxide levels, methane traces, the chemical fingerprints of volcanic eruptions and ancient forests. Each bubble is a tiny time capsule, preserving the breath of a world that no longer exists. To witness this blue is to witness the past still exhaling.
When summer arrives, life floods in. Humpback whales migrate from warmer waters, drawn by currents rich with krill and small fish. They breach and slap their tails between the bergs, living power moving through a world of silent, drifting ice. For the Inuit communities along these shores, Disco Bay is more than scenery. It's a vital fishing ground, a provider, a place where stories of adaptation have passed from voice to voice across generations. The ice gives, the ice takes, and the people listen.
In a green valley overlooking still water, the past refuses to disappear entirely. The Hvalsey church ruins are Greenland's best-preserved medieval Norse site. Built around the 14th century by Viking settlers from Iceland, the church lost its roof long ago. Its interior has returned to earth and sky, but the walls remain. Massive stones fitted tightly with little mortar, a construction so deliberate, so patient, that 6 centuries of Arctic storms have failed to bring it down. Through empty windows, the fjord still glimmers. The same view the builders knew, the same silence they heard when services ended and footsteps faded. Hvalsey is tied to one of history's great mysteries. The last recorded event here was a wedding, September 14th, 1408. 2 people joined in this very church, witnesses gathered, vows spoken. After that, written traces fade. By the mid-15th century, the Norse settlements of southern Greenland were empty. Farms abandoned, churches silent, an entire civilization gone. Theories remain. Climate cooling during the Little Ice Age, trade routes collapsing, resources depleted, isolation deepening, until survival became impossible. The stones confirm nothing. They simply stand, evidence of a people who vanished, leaving only walls behind. We don't know their final words, their last prayers, whether they left slowly in despair or suddenly in crisis. The silence holds no answers, only questions that grow heavier with time. Across ice thousands of years old, through granite walls built by hands long dust, past communities that learned to read weather in the color of sky, we have traveled through a world where geological time and human life overlap, where isolation isn't a barrier, but protection, where silence isn't emptiness, but language. The Inuit knew something we are only beginning to remember. They called it Sila, the breath of the world. The intelligence woven into wind and ice and stillness. Not a god to be worshipped, but a presence to be respected, a rhythm to be followed. Sila doesn't demand belief, it demands attention. These frozen archives hold more than climate data. They hold the breath of centuries, the chemistry of ancient storms, the signature of volcanic eruptions no one witnessed. And they are melting. Greenland doesn't ask us to save it. It doesn't bargain. It doesn't plead. It simply continues, recording, preserving, remembering. As it has for 3 million years. The question isn't whether the ice will endure. The question is, whether we will listen before the archives close.